Today on Doomed! Oh, hi, Mark. On Wednesday, Mark Zuckerberg went to Washington and sat for 6 hours. That's right, 6 hours in front of Congress for a hearing on Facebook Libra, their proposed digital currency. And for those 6 hours, Mark Zuckerberg was grilled. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he did not have a very good day. Joining me tonight on Doom to discuss everything that happened is Mashable senior tech reporter Karissa Bell. Let me pull us up here on the YouTube live stream so you can see us. And before we get into it, folks, you can support this show, as always, at patreon.com/mattbinder and subscribe at youtube.com/mattbinder. Karissa, there you are. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, Karissa, what was this Facebook hearing about? Because I think most people, they think of Facebook and they're like, oh, did Mark Zuckerberg show up for this hearing? Which, by the way, only his second time ever appearing at a congressional hearing. So this is big that he showed up this past Wednesday. So, people think of Facebook, they think, the social network. They might think of all the ways they helped Trump get elected in the 2016 election. But then they hear this Libra thing, and people are probably going, for the most part, unless you're really into tech, people are going, what is Facebook Libra?
Yeah, so the premise of the hearing was to talk about Libra, which is Facebook's cryptocurrency project. It's really early days. There's a lot of stuff that they still haven't even worked out yet about how it's going to work. But, pretty much officials in pretty much every country, as soon as they've heard that Facebook wants to make its own cryptocurrency, that raised a lot of alarm bells. So this hearing was in front of the House Financial Services Committee, and the point was to kind of grill Zuckerberg and really kind of get him on the record to answer some of these hard questions that lawmakers want to know about.
Right. Now, there's obviously many problems, I guess, with Facebook wanting to have its own, cryptocurrency, but really full-blown currency. I feel like when people hear about cryptocurrency, they think, oh, Bitcoin, which for the most part, Bitcoin right now is just an investment. Most people are not using Bitcoin to buy and sell goods. They're basically using Bitcoin to buy and hold on to in hopes of Bitcoin becoming even worth more money and they strike it rich, like a few people did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think, there's a few different questions that people kind of have about this. On one hand, I think the biggest thing is that people don't really trust Facebook to kind of even do this. But also, like you said, it's a lot different than sort of what you think of as like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something where the value maybe fluctuates quite a bit. And, people see it as sort of like maybe a way that you could get rich quick or something like that. Facebook sort of has positioned Libra as a way for sort of like a mode for people who are unbanked or who don't have access to traditional financial institutions or who those financial institutions aren't currently serving. So they're saying, we can kind of step in and provide this great service on top of our existing platform.
Right. And, it's interesting. We just got this whole Libra thing out of the way. Explain Libra for everyone who doesn't know. And we're about to talk about basically, it'll come up a few times, but we're about to talk now about everything but. Because it feels like, and I watched this whole, 6-hour thing, if I didn't get it across to people in the intro. Zuckerberg sat there, minus a pee break or two, one which he actually, really funny, he specifically begged, basically, for a pee break. And so basically, other than that, the 6-hour event on Facebook Libra ended up being most of the people in Congress who were on this House Financial Committee basically grilling Zuckerberg for all of Facebook's, and as I wrote on Mashable when I wrote the rundown of what happened, Facebook's past sins. Because mainly it seems like most Congress people don't even want to talk about Libra at this point. Because, maybe I should play Maxine Waters, who's the chairwoman of the House committee first, who basically summarized her feelings, and I feel like the feelings of most Congress people on this committee, how they feel about Libra, and how they don't even want to basically talk about Libra until Facebook gets its house in order with everything else. So let me play Maxine Waters on this first, and then we'll discuss.
As I have examined Facebook's various problems, I've come to the conclusion that it would be beneficial for all if Facebook concentrates on addressing its many existing deficiencies and failures before proceeding any further on the Libra project. Let's review the record. First, on diversity and inclusion, Facebook has utterly failed. Facebook's executive rank.
Now, it's funny because she goes, the first thing she brings up after saying her recommendation is that Facebook shouldn't even proceed with Libra until they get everything else fixed, is that she brings up Facebook's diversity and inclusion within their own employee ranks. And she basically throws Mark Zuckerberg the gauntlet by saying, "You've utterly failed." I mean, it already starts horribly for Mark Zuckerberg yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny. I think for as much people, make fun of Mark Zuckerberg for seeming like a robot and all these things, he definitely has become a much better public speaker over the years. And I think generally, he does pretty well, under this kind of really intense questioning. But you can kind of see with some of the comments that were made when they really start to bother him, and you kind of see his expressions change a little bit. And I think with Maxine Waters' opening statement, you could see pretty clearly in his face that he was already pretty upset by what he was hearing.
Right. Now, you've probably, been to more Facebook-related press events than anyone I know, that's for sure. So, you did mention that he's gotten better over the years. Now, do you think, when you watched this congressional hearing, did you think this was one of his better showings, all things considered?
Well, it's interesting. I think you can tell that he obviously doesn't feel, this isn't where he feels most comfortable, right? I mean, that's pretty clear. And I think that's probably the same for most people. Most people, it's very high stress to be in front of Congress like that. I don't think most people are comfortable doing that. But there is an interesting thing that you see happen is that when he, a really great example of this was earlier this week, Zuckerberg hosted a press call where he was talking about, Facebook's election-related security updates that they're implementing and a bunch of stuff that they're doing with their political ads policy, which has come under fire a lot. And he spoke about that pretty confidently. He was taking questions from reporters. Occasionally he'd have one of his, executives sort of chime in for him, but he was very confident answering these questions. And then you see he gets in front of Congress and he gets a lot of those same questions, and he suddenly becomes a lot less confident in Facebook's policy. And we've seen this before with other hearings too, where, they'll start asking for him really deep questions about, well, how does hate speech work? And how does Facebook define hate speech? And, or you saw AOC saying, well, could I have this kind of ad hypothetically? And he's a lot more either unsure or unwilling to say definitively. So you hear a lot of him saying, well, I'm not sure. I don't want to comment on hypotheticals and stuff like that. So there definitely is a contrast between, how he speaks in environments where, he feels comfortable and, he has sort of his people around him. And then when he's on his own, he suddenly seems a lot less sure.
Can you go? Because I think this is the part that is probably most interesting to my viewers. Can you go a little bit more into this new Facebook political advertising policy? Because it's been probably, I don't know, I guess the biggest sort of, I don't want to say scandal because it's not a Cambridge Analytica level, data privacy breach, but it is, I would say, the most recent and the largest in some time sort of, I guess, Facebook controversy over their policies.
Yeah, so Facebook has Facebook has pretty much been dealing with this issue ever since sort of the rise of Trump, in 2016, where they're kind of, how do you deal with politicians who say things on Facebook that would otherwise break the rules? And Facebook has always kind of said, well, we have an exemption for newsworthiness. We think that political speech, especially from politicians, is newsworthy, and therefore, we're going to, leave it up. And it used to be that, ads was one exception to that. They would say, well, Facebook, ads people are paying for, so we have a different sort of set of rules that apply to ads. And then this past week, Facebook came out and they said, well, actually, we're not going to fact check ads. We're not going to debunk false claims. So politicians can basically run ads, even if they contain something that's false, misleading. There are very, very few scenarios where Facebook will do anything to, take that down. And that's something that's caused a lot of controversy. Obviously, people are really upset because, there's things that basically are saying, all these politicians have a free pass to say whatever they want. Facebook won't fact check it. Whereas if you're saying that, just on your own page, if I said these same things, it might not get taken down, but it could get sent to Facebook fact checkers. People would get some sort of message, letting them know that it was false.
Right. It's stunning to me that we're at this, this point where they're basically taking in everything that's happened over the past few years, it seems, and saying all the things we could do to fix it, we're going to do the complete opposite. Because, I feel like one of the biggest issues that Facebook has dealt with is fake news. And just the spread of misinformation and disinformation, and whether that be domestic, where it's just, conservatives or the far right basically creating these really clickbait sort of websites where they push forward, patently false information on political opponents, or when we're talking about foreign influence, where it comes, for Russia or Iran, who try to push, things towards one candidate they feel would be better suited to sort of cause disruption within the election process. And it feels like they were taking this in and saying, okay, we're going to do things about this. We're going to, fact check that information. We're going to let people know that this is not a factual based article. And we're also going to, for certain topics, we're going to make sure that people have to specifically search for them. If it comes to anti-vaxxer stuff, Facebook has now made it so you have to specifically be someone who wants to search it, which means, anti-vaxxers will continue to live in their little bubble, but Facebook's not going to go out of the way to recommend people that stuff, and they're not going to go out of their way to promote it via letting it spread via, the organic reach that people use to spread their links on Facebook. But then they go ahead and come out with this new policy where basically they're saying, okay, but if it's a politician doing all this stuff, all those rules, garbage, doesn't matter. If you're a politician, aka Donald Trump, you can spread fake news. You can share those misinformation articles. Feel free. Have a field day. It's open season.
Yeah, it's a hard position for them because, what they say is, well, we don't want to be in a position where we're policing political speech. And you can sort of understand why, especially since, there's been this sort of drumbeat. Facebook is biased against conservatives, and, they definitely don't want to do anything that would sort of lend credence to that view, right? So I think that's part of it. And, I think part of it too is like, I think if you listen to like the way that Mark Zuckerberg kind of talks about these things, like he definitely has a very idealized version of our democracy and our world. And, and I think he sort of believes that, well, if we kind of have this policy, then, maybe at the end of the day, then more people will do the right thing than not. So therefore, like, this is the better policy. And, I just think that it's, and a lot of it, like I said, it does go back to also just them worried about this like conservative backlash. And that's kind of been something a lot of them have criticized them for, is that, they've sort of now overcorrected to something that maybe wasn't even really happening anyway. There's never really been any proof that Facebook was systemically silencing conservative viewpoints, but enough people believe that. And now Facebook is so worried about...
Thanks, Mike Nunez.
Right. I mean, and it wasn't just that. I mean, I think that story definitely kind of kicked off some of this, but, I think at this point we'd probably be hearing that regardless. At the same time, Facebook is also dealing with the fact that there is a very real possibility that they're going to face regulation. People want to break up Facebook. There's multiple investigations going on to the company for all kinds of things. And who's in power right now is the Republican Party. And so, of course, like, they're going to want to try it to please them. Mark Zuckerberg's been having these closed door dinners with Sean Hannity and all these right-wing figures and stuff. And, I think that's on purpose.
Right. For people who don't know, Mike Nunez is our former editor at Mashable, and I've brought him up on this show before. He's the guy who, when he was with Gizmodo, he wrote the article that basically set off the whole conservatives are being basically shadow banned, and Facebook has this anti-conservative bias. And the thing is, if you actually read the article, there's more to it, but conservatives basically just ran with the simplified headline that Gizmodo put up, and that honestly set off the entire narrative that all these social media companies are biased against the right wing. And I've spoke to Mike previously. I'm going to get him on the show to discuss that whole thing. But one thing of note, though, that was interesting to me was this Facebook Libra hearing. Whenever they went to a Republican, they went out of their way to, sometimes they do this, certain guys do this, certain Republican members of whatever committee, Facebook or Google or Twitter or whatever tech company is sitting before them in the hearing. There'll be a few members who go like, I'm a big fan of innovation, so I love that you guys are innovative, so I'm happy you guys are capitalists. That was all over this hearing. But for the first time, I think, at one of these hearings, all these conservatives, along with saying, I'm glad you guys are capitalists, they basically commended Mark Zuckerberg for these free speech policies Mark Zuckerberg is going on about. And I don't think any of them mentioned even once anti-conservative bias on the platform. In fact, on the contrary, they really did thank him for letting this conservative, letting conservatives spread their fake news pretty much without explicitly saying that. It was sort of stunning to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we saw last week Zuckerberg made this big speech at Georgetown University where he kind of laid out his view of free speech and Facebook's policies, and you see like he's definitely taken a sort of more, I don't know, maybe I'd say like libertarian point of view, I guess, in terms of free speech and
Right.
and the way he thinks about it. And you can definitely see that definitely, I don't know if that's the reason why it's quieted some of those comments, but I mean, and also if you just look at what kinds of publications do really well on Facebook right now, I mean, almost consistently every single day, the top sites are Fox News and all these other conservative outlets. Like they're doing far, far better than, the typical sort of mainstream or left-leaning places.
Right. Daily Caller, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
I believe the most recent top 10 publishers on Facebook for news and politics, I believe it was all conservative outlets except for like Occupy Democrats or some like clickbaity, mainstream liberal Facebook page. Other than that, it was 9 straight conservative news organizations, from Fox News to, like I mentioned, specific personalities like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, to straight up like online right-wing outlets like, I'm not sure if Breitbart's up there anymore. They were certainly high up there during the election, the last presidential election. But I did see Daily Caller on there. It's stunning to see like just how we went from Facebook is biased against conservatives to we're not all going to I can't even say this because we didn't go from Facebook is biased to conservatives to Facebook seems to be actively promoting conservatives, because that's not even the narrative now. The narrative went to Facebook was biased to conservatives to nobody at all talking about the fact that all of a sudden Facebook seems skewed towards conservatives.
Yeah, and I think it tells you like how disingenuous the argument was to begin with. And to be clear, I don't think there's some engineer at Facebook, saying let's make sure that Fox News and Daily Caller and all these things are pushed really high up. Instead, I think kind of what it tells you is like, one, Facebook's demographic has changed a lot in the last few years. It tends to be their core user base, at least in the U.S., is a lot more older, more conservative people. And also just how good these platforms have gotten at catering to those people. Like what does well on Facebook and newsfeed is, things that inspire outrage, stuff that's really inflammatory, clickbaity, and those kinds of publications are the ones that are, able to use that very well.
Right. Hi, all the moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas on Facebook now, right? I mean, it's crazy how that whole, and I was even talking earlier today, uh, about how, it's interesting that people talk about how, Mark Zuckerberg created basically this college hookup app before college hookup apps were a thing, like, Tinder and such. And, he could have never seen it turn into what it ended up becoming. But I even think it's a step further, like you just mentioned. He also could have never seen the demographic change. He was creating, even when he was converting it from a hookup app to a news and photo sharing app, it became, he still was making it for, seems like, the common internet user base at the time were young people, maybe the oldest being like Gen Xers. Mm-hmm. But now you see, he could have never seen that baby boomers were going to be his largest audience. There's no way.
Yeah, and in a way, they're the ones who have kind of maybe caused the most of these kind of problems. Like, if some of it's maybe just any kind of platform maturing, but back when it was just college students, there was definitely still controversies around Facebook, but you're not it was a little bit different than the Facebook is ruining democracy narrative that we have now.
Right. Now, I want to ask you something you made me think of. I'm not sure if you know this, but like I said, you've been to more of these. Have you ever met Zuckerberg?
I have not.
All right, but still, you might know this. Okay, so yeah. On this show, I always find a way to correlate this to a pro wrestling reference. In the WWE, Vince McMahon, the owner of WWE, is notorious for being, heading up everything. He needs to be involved in every little thing, from who gets hired, the business end of it. He's notorious for he hires all these writers, and then literally hours before the actual live cable TV show starts, he's rewriting what these professional writers wrote for the show. Is Mark Zuckerberg one of those types who is involved in every little piece of Facebook? Is he really down to the wire involved in all the policy changes? Or does he let the people he hires to take care of certain things basically have ownership over those areas?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think it's changed a little over the years. I mean, he's not really known as, I don't think, one of those CEOs that obsessively controls every little detail. And obviously Facebook is very, very big. So, he couldn't really at this point, even if he wanted to. But I definitely think, and his background is as a programmer, so I think the perception has always been that he's been very involved in the technical side of things, and that was true for a very long time. He was very hands-on with all the engineering efforts and some of the more technical side of the business. And then I think what you really saw the shift was around around 2016, and then I forget which year it was, where his challenge was basically to fix Facebook's big problems. And so I think at that point he got a lot more involved in the policy side of things and, some of these bigger problems. I think that's when things really started to change. He started to kind of have his hands more on that side of the business.
Now you brought up that Georgetown speech he did, and I totally didn't even think about bringing it up in this, but one thing that was really interesting to me, I wish I grabbed the clip. But it was so, what were you thinking actually because I couldn't believe just the rewriting of Facebook's history, where he basically said, instead of, and he's done this many times before, but I think this one was the most, delusional version of his rewriting of Facebook's history, where instead of just coming out and saying, when I was making Facebook to basically make it as a college-based hot or not app, instead of just saying that, he went ahead and said, when the Iraq War was getting started, I thought to myself, what if people had a social network? It was stunning to see him rewrite his own company's, early beginnings. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think that was a moment when a lot of people's jaws kind of hit the floor, because there's a very well documented history of how Facebook's got started and its origin story at Harvard, and and then he came out and he sort of said, well, if more people had a voice, then, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And, it came out later that he insisted on writing that whole speech himself, and he didn't let any of his, policy or communications staff look at it beforehand. So, which I think is pretty obvious because I definitely don't think they would have let him include that line. And I think it goes back to like, he wants to have this like idealized view of things, and, maybe he did have some objection to the Iraq war in his head at the time. Like, I don't know, I'm sure that thought crossed, maybe that thought crossed his mind at some point. But yeah, it is really interesting to see him sort of try and remake himself. And I think it was pretty symbolic of that speech too. He was at Georgetown, which is in the Capitol, and he had, it's sort of like a lot of important politicians have made speeches there. And I think it kind of tells you a lot about sort of how he sees himself and like how he sees the role that Facebook plays now.
Now I'm gonna play. We brought it in to segue back to the political free speech rules that Mark Zuckerberg is now waving around. I pulled the clip of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez basically bringing up where Zuckerberg is basically doing a little bit of doublespeak, where he says, let me let AOC speak first, and then we'll discuss. Here's that clip from the hearing yesterday.
Well, could I pay to target predominantly black zip codes and advertise them the incorrect election date?
No, Congresswoman, you couldn't. We have, even for these policies around the newsworthiness of content that politicians say, and the general principle that I believe that...
But you said you're not going to fact check my ads.
We have, if anyone, including a politician, is saying things that that is calling for violence or could risk imminent physical harm or voter or census suppression when we roll out the census suppression policy, we will take that content down.
So you will, there is some threshold where you will fact check political advertisements. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, Congresswoman, yes, for specific things like that, where there's imminent risk of harm.
Could I run ads targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Would I be able to run advertisements on Facebook targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal? I mean, if you're not fact-checking political advertisements, I'm just trying to understand the bounds here. What's fair game?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I think
so. You don't know if I'll be able to do that.
I think probably.
Do you see a potential?
Now here's the thing that's really, she brings up how, they're not allowed to run ads about, suppressing, hey, the election is on Wednesday this year, not on Tuesday, so make sure you go out and vote on Wednesday. Obviously that's a classic form of voter suppression. People have done that through mailers. People have done that through robocalls. It's been around. He's saying that that's not okay. But then he also brings up how they're not going to fact check, politicians spreading stories. Like, she uses the example, can she take out ads that says that this Republican supports the Green New Deal, which obviously would hurt a Republican in a very red district. But, a better example for my use case here is, so she's saying basically that Donald Trump can't run what Mark Zuckerberg is saying, is that Donald Trump can't run an ad saying, you can vote on your phone this year, text, and then he shows up a string of numbers that actually just goes to the Trump campaign, because obviously you can't vote on your phone through text message. It's just not a thing. He can't do that, trick people not to go to the polls. But he can share a story and say, let's say, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren has been getting information from Ukraine to take down Donald Trump, which is false. That's not true. He's saying that he can do that, though, if he's sharing a story that has that says that. Now, here's the thing, though, and this is where he sort of doesn't get it. That's voter suppression. Like, someone who would have voted for Elizabeth Warren, who reads that story, could possibly say, oh, I did not know that about her. I can't support her anymore. That's bad. and not go and vote for her. And then there's a problem.
Right. Or if, somebody in another country ran something like that, then they would say, well, that's, like an information campaign and manipulation. They would take that down.
Right. Right. And again, this is where it's funny to me. Again, there's one set of rules for you and me, Karissa, and everybody listening to this show. And there's another set of rules for Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. It's incredible that this is my thing. If he wants to take put down the flag in the ground and say, this network is just, we don't control what people post. There's the DMCA that lets people upload whatever they want, and we don't have to do anything. We have nothing to do with it. We're free of legal trouble unless someone does a copyright, wants to take it down because they own the copyright of it, or it's an actual threat that can lead to real harm. It's illegal. Then we take action. Other than that, anything goes. If that's what he wanted to do, then you know what? A lot of people wouldn't agree with it. I would probably have problems with it as well. But you know what? I'd be fine with it. That's the moral stand they want to take. Whatever. Cool. But they won't even do that. They want to, sort of have their cake and eat it too. They want to say, we're going to clamp down on certain things, but not clamp down on others. And it's not that these things they aren't taking action on aren't as bad. It's that they don't really seem to understand how they're equivalent to the things that they are taking down. Like, it's like they're not getting the sort of political issues here that they're pretending they sort of get.
Yeah, I think you can see that they're having a really hard time figuring out where to draw these lines. They obviously see, I think voter suppression is one of the only really voter suppression and census suppression now, I guess, are the only categories where it seems like they're drawing really hard lines. They also said, if there's a threat of real world harm, that's something that we've seen from Twitter too, as they're trying to struggle with some of these issues as well. They're giving, they're saying that their first consideration is, whether something could, cause a real act of violence or something. But, then you saw, I think, Rashida Tlaib,
right,
kind of took him to task for this. And she said, well, people are running things and running ads that cause, my office to get threats. So, why are those things allowed to stay up? And again, I think you see them really struggling to answer that. They're, I think what it comes down to is it's really complicated and they don't know exactly how to draw these lines in a way that would, not seem like they're picking on somebody. So they're just saying, well, we don't want to draw any line.
Yet they are, though. It's like,
yeah.
I almost feel, I feel like if they wanted to take that stance, I feel like that would actually be the principled stance. Just don't take action on anything, again, unless there's a legal issue, someone's life is there's a threat to someone's life. Otherwise, let people lie. Let people share whatever clickbaity bullshit they want. Why draw a line on certain things for certain people? Again, that to me is the biggest outrage. Joe Schmo sharing whatever to his old college classmates from 68. All of a sudden, can't spread certain things, can't share certain things without Facebook throwing a warning on there. But some of the most powerful people on the planet can spread this dangerous false information. It's a bizarre line to draw to me.
Yeah, I think on one hand, so if you take what they're saying at face value, they're saying, well, in a democracy, it's important for politicians to have a direct line to their voters. And so our Facebook ads are one form of that, and we don't want to do anything to interfere with that because that would be bad for democracy, right? That's what Mark Zuckerberg says. You've heard him now make that argument a bunch of times. On the other hand, there's people who say, okay, why don't you just ban all political advertising? Facebook even says, it's a small percentage of our revenue. We don't make a lot of money off of political ads. And they're like, oh, well, we couldn't possibly do that because that would be, then everybody would lose. And again, that would sort of be too disruptive to the democratic process. But, I don't think they've really made a good case for why that's true. Obviously, a lot of campaigns have used Facebook very successfully, and ads are a big part of that. And I just think that they, they don't want to, be in a position where they can be called out for saying that they're somehow, favoring one side over the other.
Right, right. Now, there's a few more points I want to hit on this before we leave to get away from what AOC's topics at the hearing were. But one more thing she brought up was, she also brought up Cambridge Analytica and grilled Mark Zuckerberg over when he knew about it, which apparently we still don't know when he knew about it, because he's claiming he doesn't even know when he knew about it, which I don't know. It sounds suspect to me, but I'm not going to talk about what Mark Zuckerberg, not going to spend too much time, I should say, on what Mark Zuckerberg's saying he doesn't know, because we don't got any proof of when he knew. But I will bring up this. It seems like I don't know if he lied. I'm going to assume he didn't purposefully lie, but he seems this is just as bad if you ask me, doesn't seem to know his company's own process for how they pick the people who the organizations that fact check the links that are shared on his website, his platform.
Right, that was interesting when she was I think asking him why the Daily Caller is a fact check partner. And he said, well, we work with a third party and they met this third party standards, and that's and so therefore, like, it's not, he says, he tries to take the Facebook out of the equation and say, well, it wasn't about us. It was all these third parties and they met the standards. So, they get to be a fact checking partner. And I think that it's pretty clear for people who followed Facebook's fact checking partnerships for a while. There's like a little more to it than that, but he doesn't want to, he's also not in a position where he wants to defend the Daily Caller. I think he knows that they're like, probably like, not one of, they like to highlight, when Facebook highlights their fact checkers, they talk about like Pointer, right. Some like the AP or something. They don't want to talk about the Daily Caller. He doesn't want to defend them.
Right. But, who is then picking someone like the Daily Caller to be the fact checker? Because, like we found out, like we were talking about, he doesn't seem to know how, because he blatantly told her false information. The third party group doesn't actually, like, they approve of an organization as a fact checker, but they don't actually tell Facebook or choose for Facebook on who fact checks. They just say, such and such organization went through their process to, like, get a certificate saying they could be a fact checker.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact kind of process for like how all of these companies come about. I do remember at one point after they announced the initial group of fact-checking partners that there was some sort of, criticism, I guess, from like more right-wing media circles that there weren't any like quote-unquote conservative publications, or not enough, with that point of view that were part of it. So I think that there was at some point like an effort to get maybe, a bigger diversity of opinions, as Facebook might say, into it. But I don't know exactly, I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how all those went down. Right.
Now, one thing that came up during the hearing that I knew about, but I don't want to say forgot about it, because it was, it's something that I heard. I was like, oh, wow, I'm surprised this is coming up, because, outside of when the news hit of this being an issue with Facebook, I haven't really seen, much talk about it. And I'm so happy it was brought up. This story about how Facebook was being used to basically discriminate against essentially black people, but through targeting, the Facebook ad targeting, basically, where people were basically cutting out certain areas with large, minority population to make sure that their housing advertisements weren't being shown to, minority groups. What can you tell me a little bit more about this what's happening with this?
Yeah, so I believe I think this is known as like redlining, right? Where
right.
Which is against the law. And yeah, so it came out that Facebook's ad targeting platform could, because it lets you be so narrow in terms of like which kind of people you want to send ads to, that it could, that some of these entities were able to very effectively kind of shut out like certain groups of people from their ads. And there was like, I think there was it came up, they mentioned that, Ben Carson at Housing and Urban Development I think they sued them. There's a big investigation. Facebook, they eliminated, as a result, they sort of eliminated certain categories for the ad policies. So, I mean, yeah, that was like a pretty, and that was one of the things that you saw in Mark Zuckerberg's opening statement, that they spent a lot of time talking about kind of that change and the other sort of diversity issues that a lot of lawmakers are concerned about.
Right. Now, I think it was, who was it? Joyce Beatty who brought it up, and she mentioned that, she brought up the civil rights review that Facebook went under, and I think it was important that he probably should have shown up and knew what they was recommended, what the civil rights review said that Facebook should do. But the most stunning part of it to me was when she asked Zuckerberg who is heading up their civil rights, basically, I guess, outreach. And Zuckerberg says, Sheryl Sandberg. I mean, Rep. Beatty could not believe that he said that, because, I mean, is she actually who is heading up that initiative? Do we have any idea? Because that would be, bad enough he didn't know and he just throws out her name. But if she actually is, which I'm going to assume that's the case, can they be any more, I don't know. I don't even know how to put it. Can they be any more obtuse, I guess, to this issue? I mean, that's stunning.
Well, I mean, if she does it, then whoever is ultimately reports to her. So I think, this is definitely something that kind of falls under her purview, rather than his. But yeah, it was pretty stunning. I mean, at one point she asked him if, he had read, the report as part of his, prep for this hearing. And he was kind of like, no. And I mean, it was a really bad moment for him. It was, I think, probably one of the worst moments that he had yesterday, when he just seemed completely and utterly clueless about all of these issues. And he really didn't have a good answer for anything.
And this was probably one of the few moments where Libra was a main topic of conversation, was when Congressman Meeks from New York brought up how, he asked Mark Zuckerberg, because the biggest push, it seems like Facebook, at least, in its marketing to Congress, was that Facebook Libra, this digital currency, was going to help the underbanked, who basically don't have access to banks, or aren't able to open an account, or live in basically like a bank desert, or there's many reasons why people who are in poverty and people who live in underserved areas and minority areas just don't have the access to have to banking. And that seems to be what Facebook was hoping would win over Congress on Wednesday. And Meek sort of, I don't know, torched Mark Zuckerberg on this, because there's these minority depository institutions that are basically banks that are minority owned that serve these communities. And Facebook could basically, as Meeks points out, could put some of their billions of dollars into these institutions and frankly help them out a lot. And probably there's no better or easier way to actually do what he wants to do if helping the underbanked actually, if that's his priority, that's probably the most straightforward, straight line to doing that. And he just said he didn't know if they had any money there. And, Meek says to him that I'm going to probably guarantee that you don't. And he got very emotional, actually. It was one of the probably the strongest moments during the hearing. And Zuckerberg just didn't have anything to say to that. I mean, the idea, first of all, that a cryptocurrency is going to help the poorest people living in poverty, is first of all a joke, because those people are not saving any money. I mean, most, and you could even extend that to most Americans who are making basically the medium income. I believe something like half of Americans couldn't even come up with $400 in case of an emergency. So the idea that a cryptocurrency, which gives you no ability to, again, buy and sell goods and services straightforward is going to help people who basically take their paycheck and buy, once again, goods and services, food, electric, pay their bills, rent, after school or babysitting services, so they can work. To me, it was just a moment where, man, even if you throw out all their past sins and we say, okay, they want to come up with this Libra thing and just say, start fresh here, don't bring up anything in their past, it just shows that even on this, they're just not ready to stand up to the challenge of whatever they're trying to at least say they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, this came up a few times where people were kind of like, you don't actually, if you want to help unbanked people, you want to make remittances easier, so people can, send money back to their home country, to their family. You don't actually have to make your own cryptocurrency. It's a very complicated way of going about it, right? And I think what they're getting at is Facebook's motivation here. It's not just about that. Zuckerberg likes to position a lot of what they're doing as, connecting the world, and it's kind of greater societal good kind of thing. And I think actually when you get a little bit better of an idea of why they're doing this, it's some of the comments he makes about China. And he says, well, if we don't do this, then China will, and that will hurt, America's financial dominance in the world. What he doesn't say is, it's also bad for Facebook if there's some other platform. And I think a lot of it is also about maintaining Facebook's dominance. Facebook has, very real, his, Zuckerberg's top goal at all times is to make sure that Facebook stays big and powerful and reaches new people. And, I think if people's own money is tied up in if not a currency that's controlled by Facebook itself, at least the wallet is, that's one, good way of potentially keeping a lot of users around.
Right. Now, one thing that came up during the hearing, and we don't have to spend too much time on this one because it seems like, again, this is, sort of something that is a future worry for Facebook instead of, I guess everything we've been talking about has been in Facebook's past, what we know of them so far. This is sort of, a upcoming technology, wondering how they're going to deal with it. Deepfakes were brought up. Do you know if Facebook has ever really brought up deepfakes at any sort of point in terms of how they're planning on dealing with this, or is this something that they haven't even gone on the record yet?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to figure it out right now. I think, this really became a big issue for them when that whole Pelosi video, which ironically wasn't even itself really a deep fake because it was slowed down,
Right.
I guess, rather than actually completely altered. But I think soon after that, the Facebook since has been very apologetic, saying, oh, we should have, caught that earlier. We should have, dealt with that much more quickly than we did. But they have since come out and said that they are working on some kind of policy that would address deepfakes. I mean, they haven't actually, we don't really know exactly what that will look like or how it will work. They have sort of hinted at the fact that it could be a little bit different than their normal, sort of misinformation policy. And then we recently saw that from Twitter as well. They also kind of said that they're also trying to grapple with the same issue because, from their point of view, they're saying, okay, well, deepfakes would be a very different kind of, form of misinformation, and rather than just the normal kind of fake news, clickbait kind of thing. But I don't think they exactly know what that looks like yet.
Right. Now let's get to this one. I think this is going to be the last. I think this is the last major sort of point that was made. We brought up, how Cambridge Analytica came up, and I think there was one point where Rep. Velasquez actually, really, really good point was, we can't even trust you with our personal information, our emails, our telephone numbers, and now you want us to give you our financial data, like our banking data. It's a great point. I mean, Facebook is notoriously bad at handling this stuff. They've had a number of leaks when it comes to, not even where Cambridge Analytica took advantage of their actual API and just used it in a wrong, a wrong manner. We're talking about Facebook actually dropping the ball themselves on handling, this data. But Katie Porter brought up, I'm going to play this clip actually because it was really a strong moment where basically Mark Zuckerberg refused to do the work of his lowest paid, well, not employees, contractors. Let me let her take over here.
Facebook's known as a great place to work, free food, ping pong tables, great employee benefits, but Facebook doesn't use its employees for the hardest jobs in the company. You've got about 15,000 contractors watching murders, stabbings, suicides, other gruesome, disgusting videos for content moderation, correct?
Congressman, yes, I believe that that's correct.
You pay many of those workers under $30,000 a year, and you've cut them off from mental health care when they leave the company, even if they have PTSD because of their work for your company. Is that correct?
Congresswoman, my understanding is we pay everyone, including the contractors associated with the company, at least a $15 minimum wage. In markets and cities where there's a high cost of living, that's a $20 minimum wage. We go out of our way to offer
Thank you. I take your word at the wage.
Health.
Reclaiming my time. According to one report I have, and this is straight out of an episode of Black Mirror, these workers get nine minutes of supervised wellness time per day. That means 9 minutes to cry in the stairwell while somebody watches them. Would you be willing to commit to spending 1 hour a day for the next year watching these videos and acting as a content monitor and only accessing the same benefits available to your workers?
Congresswoman, we work hard to make sure that we give good benefits to all the folks who are doing this.
Mr. Zuckerberg, reclaiming my time, I would appreciate a yes or a no. Would you be willing to act as a content monitor, to have that life experience?
I'm not sure that it would best serve our community for me to spend that much
reclaiming my time. Mr. Zuckerberg,
I spend a lot of time
reclaiming my
looking at this
time.
content.
Mr. Zuckerberg, are you saying you're not qualified to be a content monitor?
No, Congresswoman, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, then you're saying you're not willing to do it.
You know, that's just, it would have been so easy for the guy to just, I mean, this is the moment where, like, you just say, yes, I'll do that. I mean, he acts like she's asking him because she thinks he should be moderating this content himself. Because he's like, oh, that moderating this content wouldn't be a good use of my time, like personally my time. But that's not even the point she's making. The point is experience what they experience so you can see the conditions you're putting them under. And he can't even, like, I don't know if he didn't get it, which would be, geez, I mean, this guy needs to, I don't know, take some social, I don't even know, socialize, go out and socialize more. I don't know. But it was just a weird moment where it seems like it would have been so easy for him to just say, yes, I will. I'll see what they go through for 1 hour. Yeah.
Yeah, but then he would actually have to do it, you know? I mean, I think that there's been so much controversy over this issue and the kinds of just really horrific things that they see. And yeah, I mean, I think he could have said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll commit to doing that. And I'm sure they could have done some very orchestrated, like, sort of PR stunt where he sits in one of these facilities for an hour and then they feed him a bunch of, you know, the stuff that's, you know, probably not the worst of the worst, right?
Right.
I don't think he really wants to get himself into like that kind of position where he's, you know, saying that I don't think he wants to become like the face of this particular issue necessarily. Even though I know that it's something that he has gotten a lot of grief about. It came up in that sort of that leaked audio that came out a while ago from his, you know, sort of like all hands Q&A where people were kind of asking him, you know, like, are you concerned about the way that we're treating these workers? And I think that they've made some kinds of fixes and they kind of want to just say like, okay, well, you know, we've sort of dealt with that problem and now we're on to the next thing. I don't think this is something that he's very keen to dwell on.
Right. So what do you think, basically, I guess, you know, the hearing ended as all these tech hearings do, with Congress basically in full agreement that this was all pointless, that they learned nothing new, and they're still very upset, and they hope that they'll continue to work with these tech companies, in this case Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, to address these issues because, I don't know, we have another election coming up and things don't seem to be getting any better with any of these companies. I mean, yes, they're working harder to fix these issues, but it seems like they also want to let certain, I don't know, loopholes continue to exist. And also the people who are, I don't know, weaponizing this stuff seems to be catching on, and are utilizing this stuff in new ways to get around even that. So, where do you think, what's next here, do you think, in terms of, I don't know, do you think Libra is something they're going to put on the shelf for a bit and continue to just see, I guess, how 2020 ends up going with these new policies surrounding that? What's your take here in terms of where, at least, I don't know, maybe Facebook's sort of going to go with this?
Well, I think they're they're trying to push ahead with Libra. Obviously, there's been some other sort of speed bumps that have happened there. I don't think this has really deterred them, although it's given them like probably a clear idea of like what kind of what concerns they're dealing with and where they're sort of facing the most pushback. But you also have to remember that Facebook is facing like a ton of investigations on all sides right now, from Congress and from individual states, on many different fronts, and their FTC, is looking at antitrust stuff. So I mean, they're dealing with like a lot of regulatory pressure right now, and I think that's kind of like one of the most striking things is like if you think about, you mentioned earlier how this was, I think Zuckerberg's sort of second overall big day at Congress. The first one was, I think, last year. And think about that. Facebook has been around for, I don't know, almost 15 years now, right?
Yeah.
And then like he's only kind of just now having to answer to Congress. So, I think we're definitely going to see a lot more of him on Capitol Hill.
Karissa Bell, senior tech well, not just a senior tech reporter at Mashable, also my colleague at Mashable. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Where can people follow you online?
Follow me on Twitter, Karissa BE.
Karissa B, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Karissa, take care. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we are going to go. Here goes Skype. Bloop. We are going to. Well, first of all, actually, I want to play this. I forgot to mention it earlier, but I want to play one more thing from Katie Porter, and it's when she trashes Mark Zuckerberg's haircut, and pointless to play with Karissa on the line because we're talking the meat there of what the hearing was about. But now that we're going into the fun half of the show, I can give you, well, it's not the fun half of the show, that's the majority part. The whole show here is fun. We don't do the majority part and Sam Cedars thing. Before we go to the members half of the show, I'm going to play a little sneak peek of all the fun we have there by playing this hilarious moment from Katie Porter. Really, really funny stuff.
Mr. Zuckerberg, as you know, Facebook can be sometimes an unkind place, both toward my personal appearance and today apparently toward your haircut. But I just, as a mother of a teenage boy, I just want to say thanks for modeling the shortcut. You have said, quote,
that was so good. She's really good at this. There's a lot of young Congress people and freshman Congress people who are really good at this, much better than the older Congress people who have been doing this for a while. And it shows with AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Katie Porter. That was a great moment. Folks, patreon.com/Matt Binder. That's how you can support the show. We're really getting close to the goal. I've been saying it forever. We've been trying to reach that goal forever, but we are closer than ever. We are less than 20 patrons away from the next step on this show. Once we hit this goal, I'm going to roll out a few tiers. I'm going to establish a new goal because I think we'll hit the goals faster when we hit this first goal. And I'm going to, I know I've been saying, I'm going to do standalone YouTube vids on certain topics, which will be, just a few minutes long, easily shareable. I've been saying that for a while, but if we hit this goal, I will make it part of like the guarantee, the stuff you get. Like right now, I tell you guys, I will do a show every week. 4 shows a month. It usually comes out to that. And I also, after the free, 45-minute to hour, usually I even go over that podcast version of the show that goes up on iTunes and Google Play and everywhere else. I say, oh yeah, also then I do an hour plus taking your questions and comments in the YouTube live stream chat, and all that you guys know is guaranteed. As long as I've got patrons, then that's what I'll be doing. I will throw the YouTube vid thing into that guaranteed stuff when we hit this Patreon goal. That's patreon.com/MattBinder. Again, if you can't afford to do so, you can support this show through the various free means of supporting the show, like subscribing at youtube.com/MattBinder, subscribing on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leaving a review on iTunes, a written review or a star review, spreading the word about this show through word of mouth. Just tell your friends about it, your family members about it, whoever you think would like this show. But if you can't afford to become a patron, once again, patreon.com/MattBinder. And if you listen to the YouTube live stream, you're with us live right now, you can donate a one-off contribution via the YouTube Super Chat feature. Along with that, not only will I get your Super Chat donation, I will make sure that your comment is a priority. I don't always get to all the comments, but a Super Chat comment is guaranteed to be read and addressed, whether it's a question or a comment, whatever. Yeah. So that's the show, folks. Follow me on Twitter at Matt Binder. Search for me on Facebook, Matt Binder. I'll come up there. Like me on there. I'm on Instagram, although I barely use it. But again, follow me on Instagram, Matt Binder. And if enough people follow me on there, I'll use that too. I should diversify my social networking contribution, shouldn't I? That's actually the smart thing, because who knows? Facebook could shut me down. Twitter could shut me down. YouTube could shut me down for any reason. They don't need a reason. All right, folks. Patreon.com/MattBinder once again. Oh, before I end it, here are those patrons. The people who make this show possible. Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Andrew C, Andrew H, Ari R, Ben, Benji, Bobby M, Brosnan, BZ, Champagne Kami, Chi, Christine H, Colin R, Cyber, Dan, Dan K, Dan M, got 3 Dans, Dank Uger, Dave K, Dave Z, Dave P, Dragon Slayer, Eugene B, Fraz K, FTW All Day, Future MD, Greg D, Grim L, Ian J, Jameson Test, Janelle A, Jasmine H, Jeff K, Jeremy M, John S, Jonathan B, Jonathan L, Joseph R, Joyce M, Justin M, Justin S, Katie S, Katz, Kaushal, Lisa D, Lisa H, Matt Z, Max W, the user me, Melissa M, Mitch V, Michael B, Michael J, Michael M, we got 3 Michaels, look at that, Mr. Danks, Nicole A, Namde Net, Null Style, Odeth, Qster, Romina O, Ryan Left Is Best, Scott R, Sean H, Cena, Stephen S, Struggle Session, TM, Tammy G, Thaddeus A, Tina M, Todd K, Tom G, Tom M, What Do You Mean Videos, Why That Tie Guy, Will P, Wutopian, Zachary P, Zarin, and last but not least, and this person has injected some life into the Discord, by the way. The Discord, it was where this. Let me name her first before I forget. Zoe G. Now, the Discord is what you get to become a part of if you become a patron. And I've jumped in there and I chat with you guys, and Mostly though, you guys in the Discord get the first announcements regarding the show, and then it goes out through other channels later. But this past week, there's been a lot of discussion there, I've noticed, so I'm going to jump in there more often now. And let's get this Discord channel up and and bopping, right? Cool cats. Patreon.com/MattBinder. If you haven't received the Discord link, by the way, some people have said that they haven't received it automatically. Reach out to me. I'll get you invited into the Discord if you're a patron for sure. Not a problem at all. All right. Stick around for the patron half of the show. Otherwise, see you all next time on Doomed. Hello, patrons. Now, last week I said, no, we're going to keep this Patreon show to the 45 minutes to an hour that I said I'm going to keep these shows to. And of course, as usual, I lied to you. The show, I believe, was one of the longest patron-only portions of the show ever. I believe we went like an hour and 20 minutes, maybe close to an hour and a half. We will not be doing that today. I'm going to give you guys a hearty patron show. But I got to tell you, I'm not feeling 100%. I'm a little bit out of it. A little bit. I gave my 100%, 110% to that first half for the interview. I'm going to sit back a little bit, guys. I'm hungry. I'm a little bit tired. But let's get to your comments because we're going to have fun no matter what. But we're going to keep it to... I'm not giving you less. I'm giving you exactly what I promise. Usually I over-deliver. Dorian says, doomed. Zoe, it's funny. I was reading about the pink tide and all the political stuff going on in South America since the Cold War so much. All right, because earlier on the program, before the program started, I should say, I'm not sure if I even see those comments anymore. Renee and Ryan were talking about what's going on in Chile. Renee, I know, lives in Chile, right? Renee, I'm going to get you on the show, actually. Why don't you send me a message with someone who should come onto that show, an expert, and then we'll have that journalist or reporter or activist on the ground in the first half, and then I'll open up the phone line specifically for you, Renee, to jump on and give us some of your insights too. And we'll have like a full episode of what's going on there. How's that sound? I like that. Oh, we got a super chat. Let me get right to that because that's the deal. You guys are first, and it's Renee saying, "Can I call in on Skype?" I know I didn't see that before I said what I just said, but let's do this, Renee. Actually. Let's hold off on that. Let's actually do a full episode on this. And we get really into it. Because I don't want it to be just some, throwaway segment that goes on for 10 minutes in the whole, 2-hour live stream we do. I want to do a full... Because what's going on in Chile is incredible. From my understanding of it, which started as like a student protest against... the rising public transportation fares has blown up into like a full-on revolution against all the rising costs in that country, and it's amazing. So let's really dive deep into it. I don't want it to be a throwaway moment. Thank you for the super chat, though. And I promise you that super chat money that you sent me, that Chilean, is it called like Chilean dollar? What is the money there? Will not be wasted because will bring us a full episode discussion on this. Ryan says Zuck got cucked so hard. Dorian says Zuckerberg got chewed up and spat out. Kennedy says, guess who's going on Hannity tonight? Who's going on Hannity tonight? Kennedy says it starts with a T and hates Muslims. Who? That's like 100 people who go on Hannity. Rexol with a $2 super chat. Your hair is cool, says Rexol. Rexol, I gotta say, that is the worst. Like, thank you for the money. I'm being serious about thank you for the money. Folks, I don't care what your donation is. It all helps. It all adds up. I don't care if you only got a penny to give. Well, I don't think YouTube takes a penny. I think it's like 99 cents minimum. Not at all. What I'm saying here is your hair is cool is not even worth a 99-cent super chat. Rexol, come on. Give me you gave me a super chat. Throw me a question or a good comment, and I'll read that. You don't got to do another super chat if you don't want to. I'm going to give you your money's worth, buddy. But if you think me reading your hair is cool is worth it, then by all means, I'm glad I could give that to you. Ooh, we got a bunch of right-wingers in the Periscope chat. I love it. Trump 2020 says Cosmic Wizard. Always funny. My dad says, good evening, Doomed. Wait, Tulsi Gabbard went on Tucker Carlson tonight, which is not surprising. But I did not know, she's probably on the list of who you were mentioning, but not one of the first people that came to mind. I will say this. The Tulsi Russia thing is absurd. We can criticize Tulsi Gabbard, and there's a lot to criticize. With that Hillary Clinton jumping in and poisoning the discourse with these ridiculous claims. And I know that her people are trying to walk it back and claiming she said she's being groomed by Republicans, not being groomed by Russia. But I don't know. It's bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre to me because everything that they spoke about in context is her being groomed by the Russians. In the context of everything she said before and after, and her aides confirming she was talking about Tulsi and the Russians. It just doesn't fit. So I don't even go there. We can go there when we got more time, but in this short period of time, I don't want to go there. But let's stick to criticism about Tulsi and her support of horrible groups, of Modi in India, of basically cult organizations, her bizarre posing as an anti-war peacenik when she has a background as a war hawk, her bad records on a number of social issues. We can criticize Tulsi on a myriad of things, but she is not a Russian asset. She's not being groomed by the Russians. She's already come out and said that she's not going to run third party. She's a Democrat. And I believe her. Because actually, even if you don't trust her for her word on just like a level of basic smarts, just intelligence-wise, she's a congresswoman in Hawaii who has had the seat for a number of years. She's won numerous re-elections. Her father has been a Hawaii state senator for more than a decade, for I believe it's like 13 years now. So obviously her family has political capital in Hawaii. She will have her seat for as long as she wants it, which means she will make six figures for every year for as long as she would like, and be a congresswoman on top of all that. All she's got to do is remain a Democrat and not run third party. She got nothing to win, nothing to gain by running third party. She's not going to do it. She's ruled it out. But even if you don't take her by her word, She has nothing to gain and everything to lose from running third party. She's not going to run third party. Listen, if suddenly in a few months she comes out and runs third party, I will not regret my words whatsoever because, again, looking at all the facts here, the smart thing to do would to not be run third party. Because she will be reelected. I know Democrats who don't like her are trying to push her primary challenger. I haven't looked too much into him. Maybe he's good. I don't know. She's going to have that seat for as long as she wants it. I can guarantee you that if she drops out of the presidential race, doesn't run third party, throws her support behind a Democrat presidential candidate who's still running, she will win re-election. Maybe it'll be closer than previous re-elections, but she will win. So that's the facts there, folks. I don't know. It's silly to talk about her running third party when A, she hasn't done it. I mean, we're just speculating here, and all the speculation should be pointing to no, she's not going to run right now. Zoe says, all right, BFFs with Modi, right? Kenny says, why else would she constantly go on Fox News to fearmonger about radical Islamic terror while we destroyed the Middle East? I mean, she knows her audience. I mean, she's still a Democrat, though. I mean, she knows she's not getting votes from most Republicans. So, I mean, I think she knows that she has a very specific audience, and she's really playing into them. I mean, and that audience, I think, are mostly Democrats and independents, to be honest with you. I don't think she has a large base of Republicans who actually votes for her. There might be a large base of Republicans out there online saying they like her. But how many, again, she's a congresswoman in Hawaii. How many Republican people in Hawaii? First of all, how many Republicans are there in Hawaii? Second of all, how many of them are voting for her? And I don't know. I'm going to assume that's not the majority of her base that's getting her reelected every year. I don't have a problem with her going on Fox. I have a problem with how she utilizes going on Fox. But I don't have a problem with her going on Fox. I don't have a problem with anyone going on Fox News. I have a problem with what they do when they get on there. Excuse me. New Jersey Jeff says, I'm closing my Facebook account. Hell, I mean, I think that's a completely fair and reasonable thing to do if you read what's going on with Facebook and you don't want any part of it. But I hate to say it, you started an account there, they have a lot of your information already. I mean, they might not be able to advertise to you straight up on Facebook anymore, but your data is already probably paid tenfold for them. Excuse me. I have a bit of a sore throat today, folks. So I'm sorry about this. Coughing. So he says, I'm not sure what she's referring to here, but reminds me of Innuendo Studio, As We Go Low, You Go High, about conservatives exploiting the liberal fear of seeming partisan by repeating how there's a liberal bias over and over to create a conservative bias. Okay, I know what you're talking about. You're talking in reference to the Facebook conversation. Right. It's a great point. Francis Zek says, not talking about the fact that Zuckerberg is a robot. I mean, he is very, I don't know what his issue is. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to attack someone for whatever they got going on. But he really does miss out on some cues. And he comes off very robotic. He also doesn't seem to be quite getting what's going on here. And listen, you're a tech guy who just likes to code. You don't gotta do this, man. Like, you can let someone else be in charge of this stuff. But clearly, he wants to have the final say. He wants to be the Facebook CEO. And so he's gotta, this all comes along with it. He's gotta pay the piper. Yeah. That's just the case. So my cat. Speaking of not feeling good, my cat's also not feeling good. So I'm shocked he's been so quiet so far. So you guys might hear a little bit of background noise. I think he's a little bit hungry because he really didn't eat much today because he wasn't feeling so good. He's feeling a little bit better now, it seems, though, which is why now he's suddenly hungry. Let's go back to the comments here. I'm also having some issues here, too. I got some pain in my chest here. It'll go away. Whew. King John Targaryen. Mark Zuckerberg has lost his mind, you know. Sounded like Lex Luthor there with that lie. Right. Ryan says, watching this 5-head ass and his weird bangs get cucked by AOC is hilarious. She was really good. And fun fact, and again, I'm sure a lot of people sent her this information, but I sent her a very specific way of approaching it that I would like to think I inspired a little bit of the line of questioning. So the night before the hearing, she posed the question on Facebook, what would you ask Mark Zuckerberg if you had 5 minutes? And then she was opening up her DMs. So I sent her a DM saying, you know, on a press call, which I was aware of, being that I'm a reporter with Mashable, on a press call, Zuckerberg brought up the idea that even in lieu of everything he said about politicians having near complete free speech rights on Facebook, especially with the advertising, they're not going to fact check or not let politicians not run ads if they'll let them run the ads even if there's a lie or fake news or false information. He said, however, in this phone call, he said they will not let voter suppression content through. And I sent her this and I said, this just doesn't add up, because you're going to let politicians lie about anything, but then you're going to say all of a sudden after that they can't lie about voter suppression. Then, I mean, what's the line then? It's just you're just making it up as you go. It's just whatever you decide is not kosher with you on a whim. And it again, I brought it up during the interview. It just, what is voter suppression then? That begs the question. Is voter suppression just telling someone that the election day is on a day that it's not? Or is voter suppression also lying about a candidate that people possibly would have voted for if they hadn't seen your lie about them? I mean, it both seems like voter suppression to me. I mean, if they want to put forward a defense of that, and by defense I mean explain why one's voter suppression and one isn't, then I'm all ears. I'd like to hear it. But otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Ryan says, we need to get all the leftist best gang to coordinate their calendars. Who was live tonight? Was someone live tonight while I was live? Pink Panther says, down with Zuck. Dinah says, my biggest question / problem about what Zuckerberg said is, how did Facebook get the power to say who is and isn't a politician? That's another great point. And I did not bring it up during the interview, but I had brought it up before. Who is a politician, right? Because I don't know how Facebook deals with it, but I have heard from people on Twitter who run for local office and say they have problems getting verified. And now Twitter won't verify them even though they're running for local office. And obviously anyone, a foreign influence campaign or an opponent, can create fake accounts to hurt their campaign. And you don't have the proof of the verification to show, no, this is my only one and true account. It's, again, I'm not sure what Facebook's process is here, but is the county commissioner or one of those type of local races, does that person count as a politician? Can they run ads lying? Or are we only talking about statewide politics, on a larger level? Or are we only talking about national politics? I mean, what is a politician in Facebook's eyes? Great point, Dinah. Or Dina. I think it's Dinah. Let's go to Friends of Zach says Legion of Doomies. We got some fun Periscope trolls in the chat. Zoe says, why are all the bad people on Periscope? It's a good question, actually. It's weird, right? But I enjoy them. That's why I keep the Periscope restream chat module thing, the syndicated chat open. So, what else here? Oh, right. We're talking about in the YouTube chat. They're talking about a whole conversation about the Periscope folks. Yeah, they could be fun though. Dorian says it's probably because Periscope is attached to Twitter. Right. That's probably part of it. A lot of random trolls on Twitter, especially conservative trolls. So it definitely leads to them. Periscope is a lot less moderated even than Twitter is. So that's just how it rolls, right? Because you also, I believe, when you set up a Periscope account, basically if you have a Twitter account, it automatically just connects. So you get one, you get them all. Basically, it's all just one big network, even though they're two different platforms. Atheist Awesome, for example, says on Periscope says, Matt, how many gays work for you? Asking for Al Green. Well, unfortunately, I don't have anyone working for me. But, again, all you fine patrons continue to donate to the show. Help grow it. Convince some people to become patrons. And who knows, maybe I'll have enough patrons one day to afford to hire some help, some additional folks on the show. And of course, obviously, I would hire some people from the LGBTQ plus community. Without a doubt. But Atheist Awesome very kindly, when I brought up the how many people, how half Americans couldn't afford $400 in an emergency, Atheist Awesome says, I'd lend you $400, man. Thank you, Atheist Awesome. Kennedy says that I'm right, though, that these people on Periscope are more entertaining than anything. Right. Francis X says, when am I ever wrong, Kennedy? Francis X says, Reddit is better in some ways, but worse in others. Renee says, Facebook's my battlefield. Is it, Renee? Is that where you get most of the, is that where you have most of the, is that where you have the most fun in, arguing with people? I really want to get a Facebook group going for this. Like, there's a place for the Discord. We got to grow the Discord. But I got to tell you, I've actually sort of got really into Facebook groups. Funny enough. I think it's probably the best use of Facebook. And they did a terrible job promoting it up until now, when suddenly they realized, hey, look, Facebook groups are probably the best thing on here. Because you could basically forget the feed where you have all your conservative high school and college friends who you haven't spoken to in years, or your family members who are accidentally typing their Google searches. You know, you get to join specific, you know, I'm in a leftist Facebook group, a Chapo Facebook group, and you know, it's fun to be in those Facebook groups. It's much better. You get sort of like a much better feed there. And of course, you know, Facebook is still monitoring what's in the group to make sure that, you know, nothing illegal is happening in there, but they don't show ads in there. I believe, at least not in the feed on a Facebook group. So it is actually a good use of Facebook. If you're going to use Facebook. You know, if you're going to use Facebook, you might as well take advantage of how you can use it to its best ability. I'll set up a group. Misha says, I can't see Atheist Awesome. Well, if you're in the YouTube chat, all the Periscope chats go through the Restream bot. So basically, Restream syndicates all the chats to one spot, to YouTube. So basically, if you block the Restream bot, you're going to be blocking everyone on Facebook and Twitch and wherever else I'm syndicating the stream. Renee says we can build a fascist troll server with Raspberry Pi and hook it up to Twitter. Renee follows with, they're erasing anti-government posts here in Chile on Facebook, re allegations of torture. Renee also says, hand over Facebook to Eduardo Saverin. Man, that's a name I haven't heard for a while. One of the early Facebook guys. I mean, if you've seen The Social Network, the movie, he's a major player in that movie. Periscope user Stop BLMers, which I'm assuming means Stop Black Lives Matters. Stop Black Lives Matter. Sick of this anti-Facebook bullshit. Stay the hell off the site if you don't like it. Man, that couldn't be more perfect. What was I telling you guys before? How the Zuckerberg hearing this week was the first of these Facebook, of any of these tech hearings really, where the Republicans on the committees didn't grill Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, or anyone else who was sitting there on the in the hot seat on perceived anti-conservative bias. It's because conservatives have now realized Facebook is basically, you know, like Karissa pointed out, not purposely maybe, where like someone's sitting there going, I'm going to push this stuff, but they've overcorrected the algorithm and they've overreached out to Facebook's, to right-wingers and conservatives. And now they've realized and they don't want anyone saying shit about Facebook anymore. How incredible is this? Thank you, Stop BLMers, for proving the point. Couldn't have picked a better comment. Atheist Awesome says, Matt, can I buy some pot off Libra from you? Kennedy laughed at the anti-Facebook thing. LMAO, anti-Facebook bullshit. Think of the corporations, says Kennedy. Zoe says, stop Blue Lives Matter? I agree. Atheist Awesome says, socialism sucks. Thank you, Atheist Awesome, but it does not. In fact, socialism rules. Dorian says, we grew up in a world where civil debate with good faith actors was mostly bullshit. Right. Grim came in a little bit late, but points out that I see the fasher here. There's a few, but they, like Kennedy mentioned earlier, they provide entertainment. Again, if someone became too much, we would take care of it. But otherwise, I think what we've seen so far is fine. Ryan points out that when I read the patrons, it's taking longer and longer for me to get to your name. That's right. But we're still not there. We're still, you know, compared to some of these other bigger left channels, we're pretty far behind. But I'm working on it. I'm trying, and I think we'll get there. I think we just need to hit a certain point with this goal, and then I think it escalates from there. You know. Ryan says, I want to do more shit on Discord, but I feel like I never have the time. Yeah, I'll be honest. Discord never really won me over. But I see why it wins other people over. I get it. It's not like I don't get it. I think it's just not for me. But I get why people like it. So I'm going to build it. I'm not going to forget about it. We're going to get that Discord more active for sure. Kennedy says, I gotta become a patron, but I forget my Patreon password. Well, Kennedy, there's a little thing called forgot password on most, on like 100% of all websites. You click that little forgot password, and the platform that you forgot the password for will email you the password. Or a way to reset your password, I should say. Real simple way to fix that problem. Seems like an excuse, though, Kennedy. That's what it seems like to me. Dorian says, well, now we're used to you over-delivering, so now you have to keep doing it. Well, the funny thing is I bet I'll end up over-delivering for this one, too. We're pretty close, actually. Renee says, yeah, I got the disinformation fake news goods, which is your forte. Thank you, Renee. And you're speaking of Chile in that context. Ryan says, don't steal Chilean valor. Because Renee was pushing for me to talk to Renee. Listen, I'm serious. I don't want it to be like, because I've been seeing the videos and the pictures out of Chile, and I don't want it to be like, oh, Renee calls in while he's jogging and gives us a little update. That's good for other things. But what's going on in Chile now is that's worthy of a full dive into it. Now, next week's Halloween, and obviously I have small children, so we're going to be doing Halloween stuff. So I'm probably, it's either going to be an episode before Halloween, but most likely an episode after Halloween. Next week's episode will be a little bit late. It's not going to be on like the usual Wednesday or Thursday. Probably, maybe Friday, but maybe not even Friday. We might have to roll it over. But I'll give you, of course, that's what I do, and I always give you guys the 4 episodes a month. I'll just keep your eyes on my Twitter and on in the Discord, and I'll let you guys know the schedule for next week. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week. I'm thinking when I do next week, I have actually a few interesting stories that I wrote. If you guys have been following me, one on YouTube and one on location tracking technology, and I want to talk about those. And I think maybe because of Halloween and people scheduling, that might be the perfect episode to do one where I just basically run that all down for you. And then we'll have a guest the following week. I've been in talks with a guest on what's going on in Hong Kong. We're going to do that. Now I'm going to do, we're also going to do Renee's suggestion of a guest for Chile, with Renee also joining us to discuss. And this is just, we got tons to talk about. Jeez, it's too bad this show is only once a week. Again, help grow the Patreon. Help me get more subscribers so I could, so the funding for the show coming in justifies extra time put into it. And then I would love to do more shows. I'd love to eventually do a daily show. Or if that's too much, because I know there's a lot of podcasts out there, if you guys would want more content, but a full 2 hours every day is too much, I would love to continue doing the podcast and the live stream. Maybe bump it to 2 or 3 times a week, and do more of those YouTube short clips, like how the Humanist Report or the Rational National or Kyle Kalinske or the clips from the Majority Report or Michael Brooks show when they just clip the live stream. I'd love to do just stuff like that, but better produced, because I wouldn't be doing a live stream version of it where, live you gotta, you lose some of the production value stuff to do it live when you're doing a live stream on your own. I'd love to do that well-produced stuff for the YouTube clips. Just a few more comments on this episode, and then we'll wrap it up. Grim says, never Tulsi, never Yang, fash out. I don't think they're fash. Come on. I know they're bad in many ways, but I don't think they're fash. I mean, we want a broader discussion about what makes them, right-wing adjacent or right-wing supporting. But fash, I don't know. Grim says, donate tactical nukes to the Matt Binder Communist Insurrection Strike Force. Grim also says, Tulsi loves Tucker and Nazis everywhere. So he says, Tulski Gaborski. Yeah, I've seen that on the Tulski thing on Twitter. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. But I like you, Zoe. So I'll give you, you're fine. But I don't really like the whole Russia. I don't think the Russia thing is. I think I think the people who do the Russia thing actually are putting out more harm than what they think they're warning about. To be honest. To be quite honest. Ryan says, Republicans versus Russians? Is there even a difference anyway? Rachel Maddow voice. Right. Grim says, Tulsi, hawk on the war on terror. Well, it's funny. On Twitter, someone said how, Tulsi is a candidate. I don't even mess with a candidate who I can't even nail down their positions on issues, on any issue, because they don't have a straightforward position on any issue. And I said, I could nail it down. Tulsi Gabbard, the anti-war war hawk candidate. I mean, I think that's a good distillation, right? Kennedy says, I don't like Tulsi, but liberals don't get to not like her for the reasons I don't like her because they do the same shit. LOL, right? Zoe says, if Russia equals communism and Republicans equal Russia, then Republicans equal communism. Right. And I wish, but they don't. Grimm says, Russia is a conservative capitalist state. Right. And even worse than that, it's an authoritarian state in more than many ways. Grimm says, the only actual existing communism left is in Cuba and maybe Vietnam. Evolve NYC says, Matt, thanks for doing a stream. Well, thank you for tuning in, Evolve. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys every week. And I love doing it. Wish we had more patrons, but we'll get there. If I keep doing it, it's been pretty steady actually so far. No new patrons for this episode yet. But every week so far, we've gained a few, which is a new development, actually. Evolve says, Tulsi is too close to a libertarian for me and not a lib socialist. Grim says Tulsi is a nationalist socialist. Grim, I don't think so. So he says Tulsi is Knott's ball gang. Evolve says she's right about empire and wars, but it gets weird after that. But even though she's right about it, she also has a history of having the opposite view on it, too. Grim points out she's pro-imperialism and pro-war. Yeah, she's really weird. Dorian says, quoting me, she knows her audience, follows it up with, LOL, yep. She may not get votes from registered Republicans, but she does garner support for unaffiliated right-wingers, same as Trump did. Well, the Tulsi Gabbard base is the Seth Rich truther voter. That's how I've summarized it. Thankfully, Bernie has been able to shed his base himself of the very small, minute, but loud portion of his base that was the dumb left, the Seth Rich truther base. And they've all flocked to Tulsi. Now, I don't know how many of them there are. Very small. Thousands, if even that. Like single-digit thousands, if even that. But they're very loud. Online, at least. Oh, I'll bring up that Bernie rally in Queens. Because, of course, the one day Bernie comes to Queens is the one day I, Matt Binder, born, bred, raised in Queens, will be Queens till the day I die. In Queens nearly every day. The one day I'm not in Queens was the day Bernie held the rally. But I watched it. Very powerful rally. Very powerful. And that whole will you fight for someone you don't know line is going to, it went viral, but I think it's only going to grow bigger there. I think it's going to be a strong campaign moment throughout the whole primary. Zoe says she's a lib hawk. Grim says no, Knotsball way more apt. Tulsi is a third positionist. Francis X says Matt is afraid to say the truth. All right, well. Grim says Zuckerberg is not on the autism spectrum. He's just a sociopath. Well, Francis X says feed Sabu and yourself. Right. Ryan says hell yeah, Matt, slide into AOC's DMs. Funny you say that. When I slid into her DMs with the very relevant information regarding Facebook, I replied to her tweet as well publicly, saying, just DM'd you, and to everyone who sees this reply, I swear to God, it was 100% relevant and pertains to the Facebook question. Because, come on, people. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a creep. Well, I'm a weirdo in other ways, but I'm not a creep. Zoe says voting or not under false pretenses is voter suppression. Right. Champagne Kami says GNN is live. Oh, man. Do they have more live streamers than me? I mean, viewers? Probably. Who knows? Womp womp. Oh, well. Midnight Pizza Man says Cold James Cash is live. Ryan says I was first though. Right. Well, it's okay. Ryan says, Matt, no, I haven't logged into Facebook in like a year and it rules. Well, yeah, of course. Dorian says Steven Universe Hentai. And then Dorian follows it up with, oh, sorry, I meant to type that as a Google search. Very funny, Dorian. Ooh, a $20 super chat. Let's get right to it. Big Olemio. Just for comedy purposes, Matt, it would be great to see a talk between you and any one of the popular QAnon YouTube content creators. It's always reaffirming seeing disinformation charlatans getting exposed. Let's do it. 100%. You guys know, and I've dropped the ball a little bit here. I really wanted to do more debates and discussions and debunkings of conservatives. You know, the Kent State gun girl, Kevin Martin from Turning Point USA. I didn't debate them, but the solo rundown I did exposing the Joe Rogan, Tim Pool Twitter episode. Speaking of which, I got to watch that Tim Pool Sam Cedar debate. But I dropped the. I need to do more of them. It's just that there's been so many stories to talk about, and then with the debates, I wanted to get to. I feel like that is more prevalent, but maybe you're right. We got to have fun more. I mean, I try to have fun on every show, but we got to just throw out the just full entertainment value sometimes, and that's certainly going to be one of those moments. So you did you went big with the super chat. Do you have anyone specific in mind, Big Olemio? Let me know if you have anyone specific in mind. But we're going to do that, especially in light of your super chat. Kustarama says, hope you and your cat feel better soon. Did you see the interview with Zuckerberg's former mentor who wrote the book Zucked? Good insight into Facebook's descent into corporate malfeasance. I have to watch that. I'm going to put it on my list. Here. I'm going to watch Zucked. Wait, what was this here? Grim says, Grim did watch the Zucked interview. I haven't, so I'm going to read this, but I can't really comment on it. It was weird how Robert McNamee never mentioned Twitter having a corrosive effect on culture and only Facebook and Google. Well, again, I don't know the context, but to be fair, it's easy to leave out Twitter in some of these discussions because Twitter doesn't have the reach Facebook and Google has. It actually has its user base it's in the hundreds of millions, its user base, but Facebook and Google's user base dwarfs it. And on top of that, Twitter's daily users, their power users, are also a much smaller percentage of their overall accounts than Facebook and Google's power users, regular users. How about Bogolemio sent me this question before the super chat, and I guess he or she sent the super chat to get my attention. Yeah, I would definitely debate. I believe you're getting me. I just saw your more recent comments. I believe you're getting me a name now of a QAnon person you'd like to see me have on the show. I'd love to see a nasty smackdown of some QAnon YouTubers, all of whom have a vastly different take on reality than you or any reasonable person has. And the funny thing is, they also have a vastly different take on reality than other QAnoners. They all have like their own. Okay, Boglemio sent me a name. Let me copy it. Destroying the Illusion. Let me check this out. They have a fairly big Facebook page. Jordan Sather. Okay, I've seen that name before. Yeah, I'll reach out to him. Yeah, let's do this. Let's make this happen. Let's definitely make this happen. Evolve says, you're great, dude. You should take the woefully uninformed audience away from the Mueller She Wrote podcast. They're clueless. That podcast is so big, man. I mean, it's sort of, honestly, it's a little bit like when I see really big podcasts like Chapo and Majority Report. I mean, I worked for the Majority Report for 5 years. I mean, I know the work that was put into that show. And with Chapo, I know they blew up out of really quick and out of nowhere. But I mean, both those podcasts work for it, and they they're witty and smart, and they deserve it. But when I see a podcast like Mueller, She Wrote, and all those other neo-lib or moderate Democrat podcasts, those Still With Her, podcasts that blew up, the Russia obsessives and if Trump wasn't president, if Hillary won, I'd be sitting on the beach drinking a mimosa types. To see that shit blow up, man, to see the adoration of ex-CIA, ex-FBI, ex-prosecutors, like from those Democrats, because they're just anti-Trump, even though they believe in all those conservative values. It's depressing, man, because I've been doing this shit for for a long time. Like, we're approaching a decade now. And, like, man, I should, I could go one way and just be a right-wing grifter and probably make bank. Or I could have gone this way and just been an anti-Trump obsessive. Thinking, obviously I am anti-Trump, but I'm talking about as the type who thinks that all the country's problems begin and end with Donald Trump, which is clearly and obviously bullshit. I could have gone that way and probably had a quite financially good grift as well. But I mean, it's angering to see. Trust me, I know. I mean, this podcast is approaching 2 years old now, but, I've been doing progressive media for almost a decade. Professionally, I should say. Obviously, I've even been tweeting about this stuff longer. Mist says, these CEOs get access to PR firms to answer these questions. So why would he fail so badly? Well, Karissa pointed out that she doesn't think it was all him. She's for the Georgetown speech. So maybe it was all him for the Congressional hearing as well. Dorian says, to be honest, I'm pissed I never thought of Tulsi. Oh, and Zoe says she's being sarcastic. I get it, Zoe. You're my Discord. You've injected a steroid into my Discord, so don't worry. You're my fave patron for the week. We're gonna get that Discord up and living once again, thanks to you. Jeez, Kustarama with the super chat. Thanks, Kustarama. Hang in there, Matt. You're doing great. There's no accounting for the lack of taste among the masses, right? Of course. Trust me, I'm not gonna suddenly stop. I'm not here losing sleep about it. But when someone brings it up, it definitely is something that I'll be for a minute. I'll be like, God damn it. It gets under my skin a little bit, but I'm good. Thank you, though, Kustarama. Mist says, the reason Tulsi has supporters is over her break from the DNC. Supporters don't care about much else. Yes, absolutely. That's a major point of why people support her. Miss says also, time to realize that lots of CEOs are not that knowledgeable of their policies and internal organization. So he says, Sam Cedar, he killed Seth Rich. Grim says, Tulsi broke from the DNC because she was facing a credible primary challenge, because her record is highly conservative. Brian said, Bernie campaign literally just put that line on a bumper sticker. Nice. Oh, apparently same number of viewers on both my stream and GNN stream. Huh. Maybe we should join forces and we could double one stream. So he says, any new development in the QAnon lore? We'll get to that. There'll be definitely we'll definitely have another full episode on QAnon updates soon. I don't want to get too into that right now. Dorian also follows up. How are they handling not having access to 8chan? Are they just expanding their lore by bouncing weird ideas off each other and seeing what sticks? Funny thing is, that's pretty much exactly what's going on, but there's a little bit more to it. But yeah, that's the perfect summary, actually, Dorian. So he says, ooh, Jordan Sather is that guy. The Destroying the Illusion QAnon guy. Grim says Media Roots Radio. Ryan says the Shitlib podcasts. Politics Understander says, just say it, Matt. The resistance sucks. The hashtag resistance sucks. Ryan says, I like Shitlib because it so succinctly summarizes the entire spectrum of liberal gob shittery. I should also do invite some neoliberals onto this, some shitlibs on this show. I'm sure it'll be just as fun as the right-winger stuff, right? I'm going to put that down. Remind myself, make a note. Zoe says, my favorite thing to do when I feel like hurting myself is to check out neolib memes. Big Ol' Lemio says, don't worry, Matt. We'll get your numbers up. Hell, I didn't even know you had a podcast until 2 weeks ago. Big Ol' Lemio, how did you find out about this show? We're almost over. The chat's about to, getting to the end of the chat. Stream is closing up. I'm going to try to keep it going for an extra minute or two here. How did you find out about the show? Ryan says, I'll tell you how they're handling it. Read the QAnon people. Not good, believe me. Not good. Not good. Really, really bad. Politics Understander says, get one of the people that still claims Bernie didn't endorse Hillary in 2016. Absolutely, I want to do that. Mason says, keep it up, brother. Thank you, Mason. I appreciate it. Ryan says, as long as you're inviting them on so they get fucking roasted, I say hell yes, of course. Zoe says, I found out through your M-Art appearance a few weeks back personally. I need to... If they could either get an MR more, or I think Sam Cedar owes me maybe a free advertising spot on at least one episode of the podcast every month. I need to reach out to him and see, because... Big Lemio says, the YouTube algorithm brought me here after TMBS. Glad I found you. What? The YouTube algorithm doing something positive? You didn't finish watching TMBS and get sent to like a Stefan Molyneux or Dave Rubin episode? Wow. They sent you here. Wow. Grim says, Kennedy brought me here after recommending Doomed while modding TMBS. Dorian says, yes, get on MR more. That's where I found you too. I'm telling you guys, you know how I get on MR more? You need to email, Twitter message, in the Majority Report live chats during the show, you guys need to bombard them with messages. When's Matt Binder coming back on? Have Matt Binder back on the show. Honestly, you should do that for every single show that you listen to. You want to talk about helping out the show and helping this grow? I think the biggest thing you could do, seriously, your favorite political podcast, email them. Say, hey, you guys should have Matt Binder on. He's one of my favorite podcasters. He would be great. He'd be a great fit as a guest on your show. Do it for whatever you listen to. YouTube channels, podcasts, whatever. If they see one person getting recommends from a slew of people at once, they'll be like, hey, I gotta look into this guy. Maybe it'll be a win-win. I mean, I'm telling you guys, when someone says, hey, you should have this person on the show, automatically put them on my list of possible future guests, and I look into them. And I've definitely booked people off of those recommends. Zoe says, Patron of the Week award. My ego is about to blow up. LMAO. No, really, Zoe. It was a pleasant surprise to jump into that Discord and see conversation among a number of people. And I know you were the person who sparked that. I really appreciate that. And I'm gonna show you my appreciation by also jumping in there more often and getting involved in all the conversation. It's what the Discord's for. Mason says, I agree with Zoe. Found you through MR a few weeks back. And I loved the live stream since then. Man, you and Brooks best left this on YouTube. Thanks. And I don't know if guys know this, but for a 2.5-year span from, I believe, 2013 to almost the end of 2015, me and Michael Brooks co-hosted an episode of The Majority Report every week for a while, and then every other week for a while. And it was called M&M Mondays, Matt and Mike Mondays. And honestly, I feel like people, Majority Report listeners at the time were telling Sam when he would come back for the other 4 days of the week, tell him that, hey, the M&M stuff is my favorite. So if you want to go look back in those archives, and also tell Mike that me and him should do more stuff together. Frankly, I think we do work together really well when he's not interrupting me. Michael tends to interrupt his guests and co-hosts and whoever he's debating, but we actually did work well when he wasn't doing that. All right, folks. I really appreciate you guys letting me know how you found out about the show. It's really important, actually. I should do like a survey so I can get it from everybody, not just the people who are listening right now on the live stream. I'm going to put that together, actually. Another thing to put in my notes. Listener survey. All right, folks. Thank you for staying late with me once again. I'm pretty sure I gave you patrons more than I over-delivered once again. And with that, see you guys all next time on Doomed.